This family is more perverted than perverted itself. They eat food with fresh blood. Mom likes to mop the floor with human blood. Dad can die and come back to life. My sister doesn't wear underwear every day. My older brother always carries a sickle. If he's upset, he chops people. The youngest sister turns out to be a butcher. She fed a group of pigs with human faces. And this guy got lost in it. He couldn't even remember his own name. But he was not easy to bully. An accident happened. He arrived on a deserted island. Kai observed carefully. He couldn't even see the shadow of land. At this moment, a mysterious box floated to his feet. He picked it up and took a look. It turned out to be a mailbox. He inserted the mailbox into the ground. He wanted to walk along the coastline to take a look. He returned to the original spot. Only then did he realize that he was on an island. He looked towards the depths of the jungle and swallowed his saliva. He was ready to enter the jungle to look for signs of human presence. But he hadn't gone far before it started pouring rain. Kai found a large rock to take shelter from the rain. He took out his phone, hoping to seek a lifeline, but the phone wouldn't turn on. Just as Kai was desperate, a glimmer of light appeared in the distance. He took a closer look and realized it was an apartment building. Before he could even reach the apartment, he inexplicably fainted. When he woke up again, he was already lying in bed. Kai suddenly woke up. He looked around at the unfamiliar surroundings. He got out of bed wearing a pair of shorts. He arrived in the hallway and saw a figure mopping the floor in the distance. He couldn't help but call out. The woman turned to look at him. Kai walked towards the woman. "Can I ask where this is?" The woman smiled. "This is my home. Just a regular B&B. You are the second daughter that my daughter brought back." But when he asked about the exact location of this island, the woman changed the subject. She hinted that Kai should put on some clothes. He just realized that he wasn't wearing any clothes. He shyly ran back to his room. Kai, sitting on the bed, felt more and more uneasy. How could there be a B&B on a deserted island? Even when he inquired about the location of the island, he was inexplicably interrupted. Suddenly, a knocking sound came from outside the door. Ruby walked in. Her figure was perfectly curved. She made Kai, who had been single for 20 years, freeze in place. Ruby's face showed a weird smile. "How dare you peek like that? So impolite." Kai was startled. "I wasn't peeking. I was just appreciating beautiful things." Ruby stepped forward and handed him the clothes. Then she asked for his name. Kai scratched his head. "I can't remember." Ruby turned around and faced away from him, muttering softly, "Lost my memory. It's better this way." Kai's expression changed. Cold sweat broke out on his face. Unwilling to give up, he asked the girl about the specific location of this island. But Ruby dodged the question. "This is my home," she replied. In the blink of an eye, several people gathered around the dining table. After they finished praying, the man told him to help himself to the food. Kai cut off a piece of meat and put it into his mouth. The taste was simply delicious. Just as he was about to continue eating, the woman suddenly appeared behind him. "Is it delicious?" Kai was startled. He praised her cooking skills. The woman smiled. She asked Ruby to pour Kai a cup of tea. But the tea turned out unexpectedly red. Are all the people in this family abnormal? They are drinking tea brewed with human blood. They are eating food with fresh blood. Not only that, they also have a kitchen knife. Want to knock down Kai. Just now. Originally a harmonious dinner table. Because of the words of the third daughter Avery, everything turned sour. Ruby started arguing with her. The two began to quarrel. The male host suddenly spoke up. Quiet, instantly silencing the two bickering individuals. The atmosphere at the dining table also became awkward. The clock on the wall suddenly started chiming. Miles stood up expressionlessly. He muttered, 2 o'clock, under his breath. He left the dining table directly. Kai watched his departing figure. He couldn't help but ask Miles where he was going. He only found out then. This family feeds the pigs on the island. And the pork he was eating was slaughtered by the youngest daughter, Avery. He looked at her eating habits again. This made Kai can't help but feel creepy. After eating, in order to better integrate into the family, he took the initiative to help wash dishes and pots. But when the woman left, he then turned his gaze to the knives beside him. After returning to the room, he recalled every detail of today. The more he thought about it, the more he felt this family was strange. Suddenly, the image of the West Coast jumped into his mind. Kai widened his eyes. He suddenly pounced onto the bed, flipped over the pillow, revealing the knife he had stolen from the kitchen. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. He was startled. The voice of the hostess sounded. "Can I come in?" Kai quickly agreed. The woman walked up to him with a smile. She suddenly placed both hands on his shoulders. "The person who took the knife, it wasn't you, was it?" He looked at the woman's terrified expression, preparing to make a cunning argument. The woman suddenly released her hand, revealing a motherly smile. "How could it be you? It must be Avery playing around and taking it." She immediately apologized to Kai, and then turned to leave. After politely seeing the woman off, he is preparing to lock the door. He found that the keyhole on the door handle had been removed. Even locking the door is not possible. How can Kai sleep with this situation? He came to the window, looking at the pitch-black forest. He wanted to remember who he was. Why did he come here? Don't say. It really works. Scenes of himself turning on the phone in the rain came to his mind. Kai was shocked. Where is my phone? At this moment, he saw two people walking downstairs. One of them was Miles, but the man carrying things he had never seen before. He didn't see him during meals either. He took out the kitchen knife from under the pillow. He carefully opened the door, made sure the corridor was empty, and quietly made his way downstairs. Just as he was about to open the door to leave, he heard voices coming from the kitchen. They were discussing the missing kitchen knife and even suspected it was under the pillow. He wanted to go search for it. But was that really just a guess? Kai didn't care. He left the house directly and followed the two from afar, hiding behind a tree. He heard Miles ordering the man to repair the damaged house before tomorrow morning. The man sighed and agreed. Seeing Miles walk away, Kai came out from behind the tree. He startled the man and signaled for him to be quiet. After he learned the man's name, he immediately asked him where this is and what they are doing. Theodore scratched his head. Don't ever ask this question here, especially not to those lunatics. In other words, don't you remember me? I saw you yesterday when it was raining. These words made Kai's pupils contract. I had a little accident. My memory is a bit blurry. This woman is really twisted. Even twisted people would say she's twisted. She mops the floor with human blood. She also enjoys peeping on other handsome guys. She also has a twisted husband. Just because of a small matter, she almost killed her own son. Just returned to the B&B. He suddenly heard footsteps coming from the corridor. It startled him, causing him to shiver. He curled up under the covers, not daring to move. The woman peeking outside the door. She looked through the keyhole at Kai pretending to sleep, with an intriguing smile on her face. At this hour, how can he still sleep? After the person left, Kai tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. I'm not sure how long it has been. The moon still hangs high in the sky. Kai's face is ashen. He feels like he's going crazy. And on the other side of the B&B, under a small wooden house, a child is leisurely swinging on a swing, holding a mobile phone in hand. Who is this child watching videos again? The next day arrived in the blink of an eye. Kai sat at the dining table with a pair of panda eyes. The male host has sharp eyes. You look very tired. Kai said he was a bit uncomfortable. The man also didn't expose him. smiling. Have your memories recovered? This made him feel uneasy. No, not at all. The hostess smiled and comforted him a few words. Then she brought out the remaining dishes. He found that the dishes on the table were completely different from last night. The woman smiled and cheerfully encouraged him to eat more. Kai looked at the woman wearily. Did you make all these? As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere instantly became tense. Everyone glared at him darkly. Kai was instantly baffled. He thought to himself, "Did I say something wrong?" At that moment, the host smiled at him and asked, "Is there a problem?" "No." The man who received an answer prepared to pray with others before cooking. The hostess interrupted him. "Honey, weren't you going to tell everyone something?" The man suddenly realized. He smiled and bowed gracefully. He took out a pair of dirty shoes and placed them on the table. Kai, upon seeing this, immediately felt that something was amiss. Because those were the shoes he had worn out. The man's face darkened. Who wore these shoes out last night? Both girls thought it was Miles, who wore them, because he's the only one who goes out at night. Avery was even more straightforward. "Brother, you got dirty the shoes that Dad likes the most." The men also turned their attention to Miles. "Is it you who wore it out? Lying is not a good child, you know." Miles clenched his teeth and remained silent. He shook his head wildly to indicate it was not him. The man approached him, with his gaze at a strange angle. "It really is you," he said. Kai suddenly stood up and shouted, "It's me who's wearing it!" Everyone looked at him with different expressions. This made him break out in a cold sweat. The evening was so boring. And there was no phone. I thought it was just a pair of old shoes. So I wore them out. The man's face revealed a sinister smile. "Are you bored? How about I make your life more interesting?" Soon, the man brought him to the seaside. After he shot a seagull, he calmly replaced the bullets in his shotgun. These birds, upon hearing the gunshot, will scatter and flee. But there are always one or two little cuties, lacking alertness, fond of daydreaming, and their fate is simply death. He then handed the hunting rifle to Kai, asking if he wanted to give it a try. Kai, who took the hunting rifle, was a bit at a loss. Seeing him like this, the man smiled. "Are you afraid? You said it was boring. This is interesting, right? You can take control of your life." He turned around and pointed his finger at the seagulls in the distance. What will Kai with the gun do next? These two men are on a date. But they both have their own secrets. Just now, Kai, who had obtained a hunting rifle, aimed it at the man without hesitation. He wants to force out the information about this island and the mechanic. The man, however, had planned ahead and turned around. He walked purposefully towards Kai. He grabbed the gun and pointed it at the chest. "This island has no name. The repairman is our employee. And you? Just a guest. Not only getting a free ride. You threatened me, the master, with a gun at the moment when Kai was distracted." The man pulled hard, and the gun returned to his hand. He also aimed the gun at Kai, but he didn't hesitate at all. He pulled the trigger directly. There was only a clicking sound. No bullet was fired from the gun. Kai was so scared that he was trembling. The man took back the double-barreled shotgun. It needed to be reloaded after every 2 shots. "This is a paid service. Customer like you, who is penniless, is not qualified to enjoy it. Do you know there are no bullets in the gun? Otherwise, how could you make such a joke?" "You said it." Kai forced a smile. "Yes." After the man left, he came to the beach alone. He couldn't help but ponder. Who are those guys? What are they doing opening a B&B on a deserted island? Why am I here again? No matter how much I think about it, I have no clue. Because there is absolutely no relevant memory. Suddenly, a mailbox fell to the ground in the distance, interrupting Kai's thoughts. He quickly walked towards the mailbox. Strange. There was no wind. How could this thing fall over? he noticed the sharp edge of the mailbox. A memory surged. He recalled the scene of himself planting the mailbox in the ground. The wooden stick at that time was not so sharp. Kai, whose memory was confused, threw the mailbox on the ground. He suddenly noticed that the door of the mailbox was open. He reached out and opened the door, vaguely seeing a piece of paper inside. He took out the piece of paper. On the front, there was a pattern similar to mosaic. On the back, the number 5 was written. What does this 5 symbolize? Just as Kai was thinking about it, Ruby's voice came. How is your relationship with Dad going? Is it going smoothly? He quickly put the note into his pocket. He looked at the girl's innocent face. He felt that this was what a normal person would do. Who knows? Maybe she's just pretending. The girl invited him to take a walk together. Kai, who was following behind, was trying to subtly extract information about the island. The girl suddenly turned around. She threw herself into Kai's arms. She looked up at him. Aren't you curious about anything else besides these trivial matters? She reached out and touched his cheek. We are all adults now. Can't we do other interesting things? Kai's face turned bright red because of her. The girl left Kai's embrace. She asked him to follow her. What will they do next? The girl tried going without a bra for the first time. She took a walk on the beach with the amnesiac Kai. Kai blushed with shyness, mixed with a hint of anticipation. But the scene before him? He was greatly disappointed. Ruby brought him to a fishing platform. Kai's face changed. Did you bring me here to fish with me? Ruby looked at Kai for a long time. She suddenly laughed. Little brother, what are you thinking about? Kai tried hard to conceal his embarrassment. Don't talk nonsense. I wasn't thinking about anything. This joyful scene was all seen by a figure in the distance. After playing around, the two of them started fishing. During the chat, Kai learned from Ruby about this strange family. Dad is stricter because of his religious beliefs. Mom suffers from a serious case of princess syndrome and is very narcissistic. My older brother has always lived in his own world. And the younger sister, on the other hand, is like a lunatic. She often abuses small animals, with a very excited expression on her face. Is it really true as she said? Ruby looked at Kai beside her. And what about you? What kind of person were you before? He tried hard to remember for a long time. He scratched his head apologetically. He couldn't remember. The girl seemed slightly disappointed. It's a bit of a pity. Suddenly, there was a slight noise coming from the drifting. Ruby immediately pointed at the fishing rod. It's hooked. Quickly reel it in. Kai is a bit at a loss. I seem to not know how to do it. The girl, seeing the situation, prepared to personally take action, but unexpectedly slipped underfoot. She fell together with Kai on the beach. The two of them, who had just stood up slightly, looked into each other's eyes. Ruby looked around for a moment. After confirming no one was around, she placed both hands on Kai's shoulders. She tackled the surprised Kai to the ground. Please help me. I want to leave here. After saying that, she covered her cheeks and left. Kai stood up and watched Ruby's departing figure. Could it be that she couldn't get out as well? At this moment, he noticed a book dropped by the girl. He picked it up and took a look, only to find that there wasn't a single word in the book. He couldn't believe it, and continued flipping through the book. After flipping through it entirely, there still wasn't a single word. This discovery made him shudder. He clearly saw the girl flipping through this book earlier. Kai took the book without words back to the B&B and happened to bump into Miles walking towards him. When he approached, Kai smiled and said, I'm sorry for putting you in a difficult situation this morning. Miles ignored him. He just glanced at the book in Kai's hand. He left indifferently. He turned around and stopped Miles, wanting to ask him if he had been abused or something. But they locked eyes for a long time. He couldn't bring himself to ask. He could only watch Miles leave. Turning around, he looked at B&B, recalling the strangeness of this family. Suddenly, Miles appeared behind him like a ghost. "I have to ask you," he said. The sudden sound startled him. "I'm too curious. The book in your hand is something from Ruby, right?" Kai picked up the book. "Ah, I was just thinking of returning it to her." The sentence wasn't finished. Miles seemed to have turned into a monster. "You killed Ruby." "I'm going to kill you." Kai seems to be serious. He ran away as fast as he could. He wanted to enter the B&B, but the door just wouldn't open. He saw Miles coming up behind him. He widened his eyes and yelled that he didn't kill Ruby. Miles didn't listen at all. He seemed determined to kill him. At this moment, little sister Avery appeared. "I saw Ruby. The madman is having a fashion show in his own room." Miles also stopped when he heard this. After confirming that Ruby was not dead, Miles went to little sister's side, ready to leave with her. He looked at the two of them chatting and laughing. Kai suddenly felt furious. "Stop right there," he said. The siblings turned back simultaneously without prior agreement. "You madman. Apologize to me quickly." The little girl, who is only 7 years old. She became a billionaire by raising pigs. The pigs she raises are bigger than mountains, and even have human faces. Just now, Kai, who was almost killed, angrily wanted an apology. The siblings didn't care at all about what he said. They even started making jokes. Kai was stunned. Afterwards, Avery rubbed his hands. "Uncle, my brother has some mental issues. Please bear with him. He's just talking. He won't really harm you." "Right, brother? And you are the same. Do you want to kill Ruby?" Kai was a little confused by the question. "Of course not. Why would I want to kill her?" He doesn't want to now. But later, he will want to chop her into 1,000 pieces. Avery happily raised his hand upon receiving the answer. "Okay. Problem solved perfectly." Kai was stunned for a moment by this magical train of thought, watching the two figures leave. Kai was furious. "Apologize. I want an apology. My heart is still pounding now." Hearing Avery's voice, he quickly walked up to him. Innocently asked if he had a heart disease. Upon learning that Kai did not, she instead blamed him for being too much. He was overly sensitive towards his brother with defects. Kai was stunned. "I almost got chopped. You say I'm sensitive." The younger sister, however, disagrees. She thinks her brother is just holding a sickle. The notion of murder is entirely Kai's own invention. She also mocks him strangely for being timid. The sentence enraged him. Kai grabbed Avery's shoulder. What to say next? The girl suddenly shouted, "Get lost!" And then she knelt down on the ground with a thud, crying. Kai hadn't figured out the situation yet. He then heard the sound of the door opening behind him. The hostess stuck half of her face out of the door crack. "Why is it so noisy?" She saw her young daughter crying on the ground and quickly came out to ask her what happened. Avery went straight to complain to the villain. "Mom, he looks down on my brother who is disabled, calls me a little kid, and even wants to attack me." Kai feels wronged. He was just about to explain. He was angrily rebuked by his mother immediately. "I thought you were a good person. You really disappointed me. My child is very well behaved. You have no right to look down on children and disabled people." Kai wanted to explain again. The girl threw herself at her mother, hugging her arm tightly, crying miserably. The woman focused on comforting her crying daughter and completely ignored Kai's explanation. After comforting her daughter, she looked at Kai and said, "Let's talk privately." Upon hearing this, Avery smiled triumphantly. Upon entering the room, Kai fell silent for a moment before explaining that everything was just a misunderstanding. The woman had a smile on her face. "Didn't you see it? My kitchen knife." Kai was dumbfounded immediately. What kind of logic is this? They are completely not on the same level. The woman said to herself, "I searched all the rooms. I couldn't find it. It's strange. Clearly you took it. He didn't expect it either. The woman had long seen through everything. Kai still wanted to argue, but the woman used the safety of the family as an excuse. She drove him to a cabin on the outskirts. Kai entered the house. He first cooked himself a packet of instant noodles. After eating the noodles, he glanced at the stolen kitchen knife. He lay comfortably on the floor. He thought to himself, "Finally, I can have a good night's sleep." He soon regretted it. Annoying mosquitoes kept him awake at night. Just as he closed his eyes, he heard a sound. He went to the window and saw a boy swinging on a swing downstairs. The child was holding a phone and glanced back at him. Kai also noticed the phone in his hand. His pupils constricted. Just as he was about to speak, the boy left the swing. He walked deep into the jungle. Kai ran out of the house. He chased after him. Can he catch up with the boy? Who is that boy? Have you ever seen someone with a pig's head? That Kai just met one. He encountered not just one, but a group. Just now, Kai, who was tracking the boy's footprints, arrived at a patch of grass. He failed to find the boy's figure. Suddenly, he heard a sound coming from a distance. It seemed like something was approaching. When the thing emerged from the bushes, a pig-headed person appeared in front of Kai. He was stunned with fear, just as Kai was at a loss. A ray of sunlight shone on Kai's face. It turned out to be just a dream. By now, he was sweating profusely. What a disgusting dream. He got up and went downstairs. Looking at the empty swing, he wondered, was that dream really so vivid? Where did my phone go again? At this moment, Mr. Theodore pulled open a door and arrived at a small wooden house. He complained that Kai did not listen to his advice, thinking that his recklessness would also involve him. Kai didn't react immediately. He tried to recall afterwards. He then remembered that Mr. Theodore had said before that in order to live here, one must become a useful person. While he was lost in thought, the man had already climbed up the stairs. Kai quickly stepped forward to help. The male host said, "You are an employee here. Were you brought here by force as well?" Theodore smiled. "There's no need to ask." The man quickly helped him install the door, but didn't install a lock for him. Watching the man leave, Kai called out to him, "Mr. Theodore, have you ever thought about leaving here?" The man glanced at him casually. Kai became more and more excited as he spoke. From running a commercial B&B to the arrival of tourists, communication tools used for reservations, the boat the guests ride on, and so on. After a thorough analysis, he felt that he could leave this ghostly place right away. Theodore, however, remained expressionless. "Good luck to you." He finished speaking and then turned around to leave. Kai saw his negative appearance. He did not give up and chased after him. He persuaded the man to cooperate with him and leave together from here. "After all, I don't have a phone and I don't have any memory. I can't do anything." The man remained silent as usual. Kai planned to seek help when the next guest arrived. Upon hearing this, the man stopped in his tracks. Recently a guest did come. Kai hurriedly asked where the guest was. The man pointed at his stomach. "Now, they should be somewhere inside you." Kai didn't react immediately. After being stunned for a few seconds, he rushed forward and grabbed the man's arm. "Say it again if you dare," he said. At this moment, he noticed the purple needle marks on the man's arm. It was clearly a sign of a drug addict. The man pulled his arm out in one swift motion. He slowly turned his head around. He had a sinister expression on his face. "See that? You idiot." Seeing a man cursing himself, Kai looked angry. "Do you really think I'm easy to mess with?" He stepped forward and grabbed Theodore's collar. "You drugged idiot. Tell me, what's in my stomach?" The man completely lost his arrogance from before. He had a frightened look on his face. Returned to the wooden house. He knelt in front of Kai, apologized to him. He said that his words just now were all jokes. Kai slapped me. You're trying to deceive an amnesiac like me. Are you polite? The man quickly explained that it was because he was too bored. Just trying to have some fun. Kai, however, didn't buy it. If you're bored, why not leave? Also, the injection marks on your arm. They must be recent. The man didn't answer those two questions. He pointed to himself instead. Do you really not know me? What is the man's true identity? Don't be deceived by the man's scruffy appearance. In fact, he is a billionaire and a top-tier celebrity in the entertainment industry. He has now become a hermit repairman on a deserted island. No one knows him. In order to prove himself, the uncle spontaneously performed a dance. Kai watched in silence, speechless. Theodore also sat down. He sighed. Being overweight ruins everything. Your dance. It's not completely useless. Kai fell into memories once again. He recalled before the incident, on the TV in a restaurant. He saw the news about a famous singer's drug addiction and disappearance. Kai, who came back to his senses. He excitedly held the uncle's hand. I remembered you. You are the singer Theodore. The man was also overwhelmed by this sudden enthusiasm. He didn't know what to do. Seeing Kai so happy, he also took the opportunity to bring up the joke from earlier. Before he could answer, the sound came from the toolbox. Anxious voice asking where the uncle was. He hurriedly opened the toolbox. He held the walkie-talkie in his hand and responded with a sound. The walkie-talkie sounded again, asking him to check the guest rooms and doors and windows at the B&B. Theodore, after hanging up, intentionally let out a sigh of complaint. This prompted Kai's inquiry, and he smoothly revealed news of guests arriving on the island. This ignited hope in Kai's heart. He secretly came to the beach. He witnessed the warm reception of guests by the B&B owner. But there was an indescribable strangeness among them. After confirming that several people entered the B&B, Kai ran frantically towards the beach. Because someone came, there must be a boat. Even though he was covered in sweat and exhausted, the joy on his face could not be hidden. At this moment, a figure appeared before him. It turned out to be Ruby. The girl could tell at a glance that he wanted to leave here. She saw Kai's generous admission. Ruby walked up to him. She looked pitifully and begged Kai to take her away. She also said that the people on the island are not her real family. This made Kai think of the wordless book, believing that it was the silent accusation of the girl. The weak ones are always easily loved by others. Kai was completely taken in by her award-winning performance as a film actress. The two of them ran hand in hand to the seaside. They saw Miles sitting on a small boat from afar. After quietly observing, Ruby suggested distracting her brother on her own. Let Kai adapt on the fly. He can leave on his own in this urgent situation, but he must come back to help you. Then she walked towards Miles without looking back. She called her brother over from a distance. She took out the newly bought lipstick and applied it to her lips. She coquettishly asked her brother if she looked good. Miles had no expression. I don't understand. As long as you think it looks good, it's fine. Taking advantage of the two people talking, Kai had secretly approached behind Miles. He lifted a huge rock intending to knock him unconscious. Little did he know that he was keenly detected by Miles. He turned around and grabbed Kai's arm. He pulled with force. The stone in Kai's hand dropped. Miles used his other hand to firmly grab Kai's neck. His gaze was sharp. What do you want to do? Breathing heavily, Kai still remembers to loudly tell Ruby to go first. Upon hearing this, Miles waved his big hand and threw Kai to the ground. The girl put on a surprised expression, wanting to stop her brother. But the standing Kai told her not to worry about him. Seeing her sister make up her mind to leave, Miles walked quickly to her and was about to grab Ruby. Kai suddenly hugged him from behind. Ruby didn't hesitate and walked towards the direction of the boat. She arrived at the side of the boat. She looked back and said, Kai, I will definitely come back. After saying that, she jumped onto the boat. By the time Miles broke free from Kai's restraints, Ruby had already left far away. He turned around and glared fiercely at Kai. You idiot! The girl wanted to kill her own brother. She was willing to join forces with unfamiliar men. Unexpectedly, he was easily stopped by his older brother. But the young girl took the opportunity to escape. Kai was left behind to face this dysfunctional family alone. He was taken back to the B&B by Miles. The hostess found out that her daughter had left. She looked worried. She blamed Kai for causing trouble for their family. If her daughter doesn't come back, she will hold him accountable. Just after speaking, the youngest daughter and father both laughed coincidentally. The eerie laughter filled the entire hall. The two of them praised the woman with humor and good acting skills while laughing. Kai was stunned for a moment by the carefree laughter of the father and daughter. He didn't know what they were laughing about. Immediately, confusion turned into anger. What are you laughing at? Aren't you all abusing Ruby all along? I heard that. Several people all looked at him unconsciously. Kai took out a book with no words, thinking that it was the help Ruby had asked for. He also mentioned what Ruby had said about things that were not related to her family. After a moment of silence, the man looked at him curiously and said, Are you mentally abnormal? Kai didn't understand the meaning of this sentence. The hostess explained with a smile. Ruby is naturally an enthusiastic and playful girl who loves jokes. The younger sister also didn't forget to criticize her older sister as a crazy woman. The host's eyes gleamed coldly. Who do you think is the weirdest one here? He rose from his chair, transforming into Sherlock Holmes. A man who claimed to have amnesia. Just arrived at my house. The kitchen knife went missing. He casually wore my shoes, strolling outside in the early morning. Even my well-behaved daughter left home after you appeared. You even wanted to pick up a stone and smash my son's head. What is the reason for this? Kai didn't expect that. In just a few words, the man blamed himself for all the mistakes. Seeing himself in a disadvantageous position, he immediately stood up. He thanked them for taking him in. At the same time, he also apologized for what happened to Ruby. He proposed borrowing a phone or using the internet to contact the outside world. The man smiled. There is no phone or internet here. This answer made Kai fall into despair. He did not believe what the man said. He asked how his guest had come here today. The hostess denied having any guests. He didn't believe the woman's nonsense, because he heard it with his own ears. The radio transmitted sounds of someone tidying up the guest room. He saw the guests disembarking on the island with his own eyes. Can ears and eyes deceive people too? He rushed up the stairs as if going crazy. He checked each room one by one. He did not find any trace of the guest. Kai fell into self-doubt, whispering to himself, Room B! Where is Room B? He noticed the male host behind him. Kai turned around. He angrily grabbed the man's collar and demanded to know where Room B was. Avery walked over. This uncle is really crazy. The rooms in our house never have prefixes like A, B, C, D. Kai stared at her blankly. At this moment, Miles is holding a book without words. He is reading the text out loud. He walks up to Kai. This book is Ruby's favorite. It's not blank. You're crazy. Can Kai accept this result?